So this video is about the Roman Empire, the Muslims, Western Europe, and some of the things that happened towards the end of the Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire, became like preeminent in the 1st century AD, took over most of North Africa, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and some parts of the Middle East. And that continued for a while. Around the 5th century, 4th century, some of the people that were in like some of the northern sections of the empire started to rebel and break away. They call these folks Germanic tribes, and they ended up taking over the western part of the empire. And there was an emperor, Constantine, that decided to move from Rome to a place in present-day Turkey. Now they call it Istanbul. Then he named it Constantinople. So he started ruling from that eastern part of the empire. So fast forward to the 7th century, the Muslims came on the scene. Within 100 years, they took over all the Middle East and North Africa, and then Spain. So that was like that for a while, and these are mostly, Arabs and some of the Africans, the Sudanese and some other black North Africans and such. And that continued for a while. Basically, the view from the Christian side is that anytime the Muslims take over a place, it's their job to take it back. And there was a new player that came on the scene called the Seljuk Turks. I think they call it Seljuk. These Turks were more, I don't know, maybe I would say they are more violent, or maybe just more effective in fighting. So they came around, took over a lot of the eastern parts, and then started taking over a lot of what is now known as present-day Turkey, which is where Constantinople and the Byzantines were based at. So they took over a lot of that. And before then, Jerusalem, which was part of the eastern part, the Byzantine Empire and everything, when the Muslims took over, they would allow Christians to come and pray at some of the holy sites. These Turks did not. At least that's what people claimed. And it got a lot of Christians worried, so that when the emperor of the Byzantines appealed to the Pope for help, they were more receptive, because now these guys are not even letting them come and pray in Jerusalem anymore. But before they could really do anything about it, a new group came in called the Fatimids from Egypt. They took over Jerusalem. They were more, I don't know how to say it, more tolerant. But it didn't matter anyway, because the Pope already called to all the Christians to amass like a army and go and take back Jerusalem. And the first wave, attracted a lot of poor people, and they went so far, but they never really got to Jerusalem, because they were killed along the way by the Turks. The second wave was one that was successful, which people call the First Crusade. It was mostly a lot of nobles, knights. Many of these knights were people known at that time as Normans. They were Scandinavians that settled in some of the Western European countries like England and France, took over their countries actually, and became real powerful. Some of them took over Sicily, another group took over England, another group took over France. So many of the the top military guys were part of this First Crusade, and each time they would meet with the Emperor of Byzantine, and they will give them blessings, and then they will talk strategy, and also send people with them to help them navigate the way. So finally, these guys, it took them 3 years, from 1096 to 1099, to get to Jerusalem. And they got there, laid siege. Of course, before they got to Jerusalem, they were involved in a lot of battles, sometimes against Christians, because sometimes they run out of food and they just needed something to augment their supplies. So they got to Jerusalem. The story is that they ended up killing a lot of the people that lived there, Jews and Muslims alike. And one of the things that came out of this First Crusade was that a group of these knights were trying to take over the Dome of the Rock, which is like the place that people believe was built over the Temple of Solomon. So finally, when these guys took over that temple, there is a belief that they discovered some things there, and also just by living and in that area of the world, learned things they didn't know. A lot of some esoteric ideas that they now kind of gain control of. So these people now started calling themselves the Poor Knights of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, and some people call that the Knights Templars. And they also became to be powerful. One of the things that they were tasked with, I think the Pope gave them some kind of charter to do this, is to help people that want to come and visit the holy temple and the holy sites in Jerusalem, so that they are able to come in and go out without getting robbed and stuff like that. And they also had like outposts along the way. So for example, people created them as part of what came to be known as the modern banking, the money transfers and stuff like that, where you would give money to somebody maybe in France, and if you needed some of that money along the way to Jerusalem, you can call on some other people that they tell you about with codes and stuff. They can give you some of that money so that you have access to your money, even though you didn't physically carry the money. Another thing that happened is that some of these Knight Templars, when they went back to Europe, because they would go back and forth, started dressing a little bit like Muslims, I guess. And people started getting jealous and everything. And they also seemed to be wealthier, they got money, and more knowledgeable too. And eventually people came against these Knight Templars and arrested a lot of them, killed them. Of course, I don't think they killed all of them, but that's what the story said, that they killed all of them. And I think their most prominent head in France at the time, because it was I think the King of France and the Pope were somewhat related in this, but they basically connived together to get rid of these Knight Templars. And their main guy, when he was killed, I forgot his name now. When he was killed, I heard it cost people, and it cost the people that did it, that they were gonna suffer for doing this. And I think it was also on Friday the 13th when it happened, and that's one reason why people associate Friday the 13th as a bad omen. Of course, many people believe that the Knight Templars did not perish like that at that point, and that some of the surviving secret societies were outgrowths from the Knight Templar. because some people believe that a lot of them actually escaped into Scotland, and people will always talk about this Rosalind Chapel as evidence that it was taken over by these Knight Templars, and that the King of Scotland at the time, when he had problems with England, the Knight Templars helped to fight. And also, when one of the English queens did not have a child, there was a King of Scotland that ended up becoming the King of England as well. In fact, there was one of those kings that was King of England, Ireland, and Scotland at the same time. And so a lot of these Templar things also came into England by that. And people believe that the Freemasons is somewhat a direct offshoot from the Knight Templars. And in the Freemason, they have all these different degrees. And I've read somewhere that some of the degrees is like the Order of the Knight Templar. There's another one called Order of Assassins. These assassins were derived from the Muslims, which they were like the sect in the Islamic world where if like a leader was not doing the right thing, these are people that they sent to kill him. So they incorporated all that into the Freemasons as well. And some of those things are still with us today, obviously. And one of the things you observe is that when the Christians and the Muslims started fighting, a lot of the knowledge that was in the old Eastern world came into Western Europe as a result. For example, later on in that same Constantinople, when the Turks, this time not the Seljuk Turks, the Ottomans, finally took over Constantinople and renamed it as Istanbul, a lot of people that were living there fled to Western Europe, and of course took with them all their old knowledge and brought them to Western Europe. Another significant situation was the Muslims that were in Spain. When the Christians took over from the Muslims, they also took over a lot of knowledge from those guys as well. Same thing happened in Sicily when the Normans defeated the Muslims there. They incorporated a lot of their, some of the people that worked for the Muslim kings now work for the Christian kings, and thereby they spread a lot of knowledge to the Christians, and that's how we get the world that we have now. Because one of the things I've observed is this world, you get different groups of people coming into power at different times. When one group leaves the scene, some of the best ideas and best science and technology that that group has passes over to the next one, so that in essence, in some ways, the next one is always going to be better than the previous. So when you look at Western Europe today, it's like the successor to a long line of powerful empires and rulers that came before us, and they passed all this knowledge all the way to, like, for example, the United States of America. And if you look at the US, for example, you see evidence of all these things if you know where to look. For example, you look at the dollar, you see like the pyramid on there, the one eye, some people say it's the eye of Osiris or something. Washington Monument, all of that stuff is originally from Egypt. And for example, the numbering system we use today is originally called Arabic numerals, as opposed to Roman numerals. The Roman numerals will have like the X, I, and all that, and it's very difficult to compute large numbers. So, for example, if you want to like write down $1 million in Roman numbers, it's going to be very difficult because you have to use a lot of letters. But look at how easy it is when you use the numbers that we use now. But it's originally derived from the Arabs. So the world we have today is like a mixture of different cultures. A lot of words, many of the words we use originate from Romans, Greeks, Arabs, Spanish, French. So you can see how the world has always been somewhat connected. We just, most of the time, they don't let it really teach us how we came to be where we are today. And I think that's all I got today. I'll be making another video soon. Thank you guys.